Welcome, everybody, to the Almost Awakened podcast. I'm joined by my co host, Teresa Hobbs. I'm Bill Reel. We're here to have a conversation about some things. This should be just really casual. You and I are just going to talk to each other, Teresa, and have a little fun with something or things that happened between the two of us over the last week that would give us a chance to demonstrate some things and explain some things to the audience. And with that, why don't you take us through a little story that happened between the two of us?
Okay. So this kind of was sparked from this conversation that Bill and I had about a week ago. And so Bill and I we were just laying in bed, and I'd asked Bill for, some tickle touch. That's like that's my favorite thing.
Can I
That's my
just
love
say,
language.
can I
Yeah,
say
yeah.
our love language, both of our love languages are touch. And so immediately upon dating, I'm holding your hand, I'm rubbing your arm, you're holding my hand, you're rubbing my arm. We both enjoy touch a lot, and that's our love language. And we both appreciate that the other person has that compatibility as well. That your love language is touch is beneficial to me because it's easy for me to show to make bids for connection and to accept bids of connection by both of us having that as our main love language.
Yes. So, and it shows up different for both of us, right? So you like a particular type of touch, I like a particular type of touch. And so I was asking Bill to provide a particular type of touch for me. And I like, really gentle, kind of slow tickle touch is what I call it. So anyway,
Cool too.
uh yeah, yeah. Okay. So we're laying there, and Bill is attempting to provide this to me. Only he's just moving so fast, like he's touching me nice and gently, but it's just like this, there's a lot of speed to it. And so I just kind of stopped him for a minute, and I said, "Can you slow that down?" And I think you said something like, "Well, I feel this thing inside when I slow it down." And so I just demonstrated. I turned towards him, and I sort of demonstrated what he was doing and what that felt like to me. And he was like, "Oh," like, okay. Like he understood it, translated to, the quickness of his touch was translating to me activation rather than calm. And so you were able to kind of stop for a second and reassess like what was going on. And so you communicated to me what you were feeling inside. And that sort of led to a spontaneous sort of somatic mindfulness experience between us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know if you want to sort of explain it from your side, like what that was feeling like to you.
Yeah. So first off, we've had an instance in the past where I had a way of doing something. By the way, none of this is about sex or sexuality. This is all just hanging out with your partner and having a more casual, intimate touch with them. And so we had a thing in the past where I did something a certain way. It was one of my moves, uh, and you allowed that move to take place multiple times. And then eventually you were like, let's just see if you like that move, right? And
Mhm.
it had to do with kissing. And so you kissed me a certain way, and it was the way I kiss you, right? And it's not the way I kiss you. It was like one thing among 40 things I do, and you did it to me. By the way, the audience, I'm gonna slow down because I think like the audience can be like, "What the hell are we doing?" Okay, so in one of my moves of kissing, it wasn't pleasant for you, and so you said, "Well, hey, like let's just try a thing." This has been an inside joke for us since we first started dating because it was like day 4, and you were like, "Hey, let me kiss you this way and see if you like this move." And you did it, and I was like, "No, I don't like that move. I can see why you didn't like that move now." And so early on in our relationship, we had this mechanism whereby if you didn't enjoy something, you would say often, like, "Hey, I really want softer touch or slower touch." But also, there comes a point where you've been very good about going, like, "Hey, let me try that on you and see if you like that thing." And so we have kind of this running joke that in our relationship where we both laugh when that happens because I learn every time that what my move isn't that great. It's not the cheat code into to Teresa. So, and when she does it to me, I don't enjoy it either. So I learn in those moments that you don't like the thing done that way. So here we are touching. We're laying in bed, we're watching TV, and I'm doing this tickly touch thing. And uh, I have an energy in me that is wanting to express itself. It's more rambunctious, it's got more intensity to it. And so I'm enjoying watching television. I'm sort of, half paying attention to the touch, half paying attention to the TV. And as you pointed out, I'm not, you said soft, but maybe I am just even a tiniest bit rough. But the main thing you noted was the speed. And you've often spoke to me about wanting slower or softer touch. It just doesn't come natural to me. I have this energy inside that is just more intense, and it's part of my personality. And you'll note this, that if there's something on my mind, there's something that has to get done, I can't sit still. I have to move at a million miles an hour, and I just got to keep plugging forward. I got to keep knocking things off the list. I got to keep getting things done. And I don't have a lot of space for, like, let's just stop. Let's just be still. Let's just sit here and do nothing and be okay with the world just the way it is.
Yeah, and can I interrupt you and just ask you why? Like, what's underneath all of the why you have a hard time being still?
Yeah, great question. My entire adult life, from the time I was 19 years old and got married, and then had kids immediately following, and had 4 of them over the course of 8 years, I felt a ton of pressure to provide for the family, a ton of pressure to not miss work, to work hard, to just grind out a living so that my family could do well. And I was in a low-end job. I worked in a floor covering store. I started off at 12 bucks an hour, and even after 16 years, I think I was up to 16 or 17 bucks an hour. And what that ends up meaning is that you start off at $30,000 a year, and 16 years later, you're making $42,000 a year, whatever it is. It's not enough. And I'm paying 10% tithing. And so our family is just barely getting by. Once in a while, I have to borrow money from my parents. But I just got to work, and I've got to be concerned with putting a roof over the head and food on the table. And every week is week to week. Every month is how we're going to meet these bills. And so just the one thing I can do is I can get up every day and I can bust my ass and get shit done. And I owned a rental property and did tons of work on that myself. Lots of things that I wouldn't have wanted to do, but someone had to do it and it had to be done. And if it wasn't, then things would just get run down and broken and fall apart, and I couldn't risk that. So the way I stayed ahead of everything was just to work my ass off every day, long hours, working 2 jobs at one time, at one point, getting about 3 hours sleep a night for a few months. And that's the thing I can do. So I still have this energy in me that, like, if there's something that's in front of me, I got to keep moving. I got to get it done. And that has translated into how I show up even when the moment doesn't require work. I am there's a part of me that just has to keep moving, and it comes with some intensity. It comes with some uh, really high level of energy, and I don't do well to sit still. Now, if there's something to do, for instance, one of the things you do, Teresa, is this safe and sound protocol, where you play music which resonates at a certain decibel, that I don't want to say tricks the body, but gets the mind to feel into dangerous noise versus safe noise, and to begin to process uh, the sounds and things around them differently than they had before they listened to the music. And it's a path to healing. And so we've done that before, and I'll sit and just listen to this music with you, put headphones on, and we'll just sit there for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour and listen to music. And that's great, because we're at doing a task. But if the task is no task, the task is we're just going to set everything off to the side and do nothing, and we're just going to sit here and just be with our feelings. That doesn't come real easy to me, and
Yeah.
maybe extremely difficult. And so I'll turn it back over to you. I'm sitting there and I'm touching you faster than you want to be touched. I'm touching you rougher than you want to be touched. Where does it go from there?
Yeah, so after after I demonstrated to you what that felt like and you got an understanding, it sort of woke you up, and then I was asking you deeper questions to kind of find out, like, what is that inside of you? Because you said, you said it felt really, I can't remember how you described it, but there was like an icky feeling. It didn't feel good inside. And, and that's very common again when you're explaining your pattern of life and how you had to sort of go, 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 and you didn't really have the luxury of stopping. And even though there are more moments that you really can slow down and rest, there are many moments that really call for your system to turn off and re-engage in safety and down regulation and repair, because our bodies need rest and repair. It has a hard time doing that. So it's still in that old pattern, and when you connect into what drives that, it's actually something on the internal sensation front for you, right? When you get to when you sort of excavate that a little deeper, you find that there's a feeling, a sensation in your body that feels really uncomfortable, that you're sort of moving fast and doing all this stuff to get away from. If you keep doing the thing, or you distract yourself enough, then that becomes louder than what's inside your body. So it's kind of this thing that many people, by the way, this is so common, are sort of constantly running from their internal sensations because they don't really know how to be with that. It's something that communicates to them, or that they have interpreted for a very long time as something that's very dangerous or unsettling or uncomfortable. And we don't even know how really to describe it, so we just do what we do. We find these adaptive patterns. And so you were explaining to me how this was happening to you, and that's what you were feeling inside. And so I took the opportunity to sort of do a little somatic mindfulness practice with you, which basically asks the other person to take a minute. And you always start out with a mindfulness practice of demonstrating that it really is safe. Like, what if it really is safe to just tune into that sensation, the pure sensation of it, right? There's two things that happens when we notice sensation, or when we sort of tune into our body. We will have the pure sensation of it, and then overlaid on top of that, we will have our mind will try to make meaning of it. So we try to make meaning of the sensation, and we create sometimes a catastrophic interpretation of it. And that reinforces to the brain that the sensation we're feeling is really dangerous. And so then we try to run from it, or there's this whole like cycle that happens. And so when we start to understand that, our brains like to make meaning of things, and they don't always get that meaning correct. A lot of times they make up catastrophic, ideas of what's happening. And what if we were to just allow the meaning we make and the judgments we make about what's going on inside to be separate, to sort of like disconnect the two, right? And what if we were to just go into the pure sensation of what we're feeling? And maybe that's a different experience. And so that's kind of what we did. And as I was asking you to sort of tune into it without, and to sort of separate the thoughts you had about it, to just allow the thoughts to be. Again, we don't have to control the thoughts. We don't have to make them wrong. What if the thoughts were okay and they were separate and they just kind of floated on by like clouds? What if the sensations, you were to just describe them in their purest form, like, oh, it's tight, or wow, there's kind of like an ache there, or there's a fluttery feeling, or, sensations can be all over the map. They can have so many fascinating ways of showing up in the body. And so when you kind of got into just the pure sensation of it, and I invited you to just maybe be with it for 10 seconds, what if all you have to do is just notice this thing? You don't have to fix it. You don't have to change it. You don't have to judge it, right? There's nothing wrong with it. What if it was just a sensation, and you were able to kind of just be with it? And what was interesting is it becomes bearable. Like, this sensation that we've been running from, that we feel like we have to kind of keep going and going and going to avoid, becomes actually bearable, and we understand it at a different level. And what's also fascinating about this practice of somatic mindfulness, or mindfulness, whatever you want to call it, is that it actually allows that energy that we've held in our body, that pattern that we've been playing out over and over and over again, to start to discharge, to start to sort of come down, to deactivate. And then, when we do this enough, when we start to practice this kind of stuff enough, it's not driving us the same way. We actually are able to come into stillness more often, and to allow our bodies to come into rest and repair. And it's a really important thing for overall health, but also just for our general sense of peace and well-being and satisfaction in life. So that was me sort of describing how it was on my end. I would love to, again, have you explain your side of it. Like, what was that like for you doing that practice, and what did you notice as we were kind of tuning into the pure sensation?
Let me back up for just a second. So the first thing, which is kind of separate from this, but I think it's a really interesting tool. I think in lots of relationships, when your partner is doing something that is annoying or agitating to you, there's a propensity to just sort of barge in with some energy and go like, knock it off. That annoys me.
Yeah.
And that's not your approach. And I simply want to say to the audience that there might be of a couple of tricks we hope you learn today. One of them might be just to really because your partner may not know exactly what they're doing, and knowing that it's affecting you the way it is. And so by doing what Teresa did, which was just to say, "Hey, do you mind if you're rubbing my leg, uh, and I want to see if you like your leg rubbed this way." So you rub the other person's leg the way they're rubbing yours, and maybe for the first time ever, which is true for me, for the first time ever, they go like, "Oh, I don't like that. Is that what I'm doing? That's what I'm doing to you, isn't it? I don't like that. I bet you don't like that either." And of course you don't. So it gave me the tangible evidence of what that's like as a different kind of reminder going into the next moment where I'm rubbing your leg not to do it that way. So first thing to the audience is, instead of sort of getting upset or angry or blowing up the way we do, maybe just ask your partner if you can touch them the way that they're touching you, and see if that keys them into them not really liking that. Often giving something or receiving something is completely different to the party giving or the party receiving. And so I'll note that. So now back to what we're talking about here. You asked me like what it felt like, and it felt like yuck. The feeling of having to touch really slowly, to again, grazing on your shoulder, and just to be really slow. Everything inside of me is telling me, no, 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 you gotta move fast. You gotta move forward. You gotta get going. You gotta get, whatever it is, the stories that are in there that are connected to it. And they aren't necessarily logical. It's not like touching your shoulder is a job, and uh, I have to get to an end place. That's not what's happening. But because so many other parts of my life go that way, the way I was expressing my touch has some of that same narrative with it. And so I said it, you did it to me, and I said, that feels like yuck. And you asked me to sit still with the feeling, and to separate the story from it, and to be present with it. And the thing you said, which you already said already, but the thing you said over and over again is, let's just make it so it's not wrong. That feeling isn't bad. The story attached to it isn't bad. You can come back to that story later if it's useful to you. But for right now, let's just sit with the feeling and make it completely safe to feel that. And when I was able to, and I've done this in other places, you and I are talking today about mindfulness. I've used this tool in other ways. If somebody says something in a conversation where in the past I would have taken offense, I have the ability to sit still, and to, rather than let my lizard brain get angry, I have the ability to um, think about the other person, think about why they might have said that, think about uh, giving them grace or cutting them slack for what's ever going on their side, that maybe I misunderstood them. And so I have the ability to sit in a face-to-face conversation with somebody who in the past would have sort of upset me, and I would have put walls up and would have been very defensive. I can remain open.
Mm.
But there are certain places I don't do it. And when it comes to, like, I've got a day worth of work and I need to get these things done, or trying to get me to utilize downtime just to sit still, and to sort of what Glenn Oslin taught me from Infants on Thrones, is to relax and release, and just to sit still, let the little thing that bumped into you, let it go, and just move on with your day. Because another thing that happens, again, aside from this, is that when you're in disagreement with somebody, or I had an issue over the weekend where I tripped up again in a way that I've tripped up a million times in my life. And I start beating myself up. And I beat myself up for hours. I'll beat myself up for hours for having fucked that thing up and for hurting somebody or being, rude or cold or defensive or whatever. And this tool comes so handy, even in just the act of forgiving yourself. And so, back to our conversation here, when I was able to separate the story of I got to keep going, I got to move, I got to, or the other story, which is this feels yucky. And if I just go like, oh, there is a feeling, and I don't have to give any labels to that feeling, I don't have to assign any story to it. You made it safe. I can come back to that later if that's useful. And I just sat with the feeling itself. And after some time, it took a few minutes, but I sort of leaned into it. I just said, like, here's a fun little game we're going to play. I took it as kind of a game, and to see if, because I know what you're good at. I know what your job is and what expertise you have in helping people do this. So I know that what you're giving is a real tool. I've used it in other ways and other things. So I also have some lived experience utilizing it as well. And so I just sat with touching your shoulder, touching your arm, just really slow, and just leaned into allowing myself to feel the resistance to that, and took off the label of resistance and just noted that it's a feeling. And after some time of just going like, I'm going to lean in, I am going to feel this until something new happens. And within a few minutes, as you pointed out, that feeling became more and more tolerable. It became easy to sit with that feeling being present.
Yeah. And the one of the interesting things about mindfulness practice is one of the key elements is outcome independent. So, you have a feeling and sometimes oh, there's this really cool magical trick called mindfulness and it usually helps shift things when I use it. But when you do it, you have to sort of be open to allowing it to be there no matter what, that you're really not doing it to fix the thing. You're just and the thing that you sort of tell yourself over and over is, "I'm just putting my attention on this. I'm just noticing without having to fix, without judgment. Oh, wow, now I just had a thought about what I'm doing, and the thought had a judgment. Okay, cool. Now I just allow that thought to be there. I allow that layer of judgment to be there." And you make everything that you're noticing and feeling and experiencing okay, and, you don't sort of, become in conflict with it. You just sort of allow it to be there. And it just starts to repattern and shift your entire relationship to that thing. And it's also a really powerful, I was writing a blog post on this today because we were on the subject of it. And one of the things that I do and help people to do in, trauma recovery coaching is to sort of reparent themselves. A lot of people grow up and they didn't get quite enough attunement from their parents to have secure attachment or secure connection to others. And because we didn't get the secure attachment and secure connection to others, we sort of learn to disconnect from ourselves as well. And so this practice of mindfulness can be used to sort of reparent yourself, to develop the self attunement and the attunement that you missed out on in your early development that helps you build more internal safety and anchoring and support. And this is such a powerful healing element for so many people. I would say the majority we've talked about this before in other podcasts about like, how many people really do develop secure attachment. I think they've said it's like 60%, but I don't believe that. And so, but even if it is 60%, 40% of us don't develop secure attachment. And so this is one of the tools that you can utilize to start to develop, a healthier sense of attachment, self-connection, and safety inside. And I always say, like, I used to study mindfulness before I got severely ill. I studied meditation, but I never understood it fully. I always saw it as, I basically took the end game, which was, oh, it brings you more calm. And so as I would utilize mindfulness or meditation practices, I would just try to make myself feel calm because I was like, well, that's what I'm supposed to be feeling. And so I would chase calm, or I would judge all of my thoughts, even though they would basically instruct you to be, oh, just watch your thoughts, going by like clouds. But it didn't matter if I had a thought that wasn't connected to calm. I thought the thought was wrong. And so I was really not a very good mindfulness or meditation student because I just didn't get it. And so now, as I've sort of come full circle and I've really understood the power of it, because, as I started practicing mindfulness more recently, I got to see in real time how it impacted my sensations, my symptoms, my emotions, and just just really understood how incredibly powerful and simple it is. It's so accessible for everyone. And yeah, and so I'm always talking about it, and people probably think I'm annoying, but it's just that powerful. So, I wanted to have this conversation today just to sort of convey it in real time how you utilize it, why it's important, why it's helpful. Um
It
yeah.
reminds me of, like, when we sit down with a therapist, what does the therapist offer? And the therapist can offer lots of things, but what a therapist offers that I think connects to what we're talking about is a therapist offers non-judgment. Like, you say what you're doing in your life and what's going good and what's going bad, and the therapist is there to honor you being able to say it without being judged for it. And so here you are sort of dealing that with your own feelings. What would happen if I didn't judge my feelings? If I didn't have to have this story to go along with it? What if I didn't have to judge it as good or bad, as you said? I also just want to point out that there's a lot of folks who listen to things on this channel because they're going through a faith crisis, or because they've been traumatized by a religion, or because their family chose the religion over them. And so there's this fracture in their closest relationships, or at least the relationships they wish were the closest. And in the course of being part of a high demand fundamentalist religion, in the course of having that religion manipulate relationships, having that religion be dishonest with you and hide things from you, having that relationship judge you as bad or broken, it is quite natural for all of us in this space who have had parts of that journey to feel a lot of things around anything connected to that. And it could occupy large places of our mind and in our life. So there's a way that we move forward. Last night, Teresa, we were doing Mormonism Live, RFM and I. No, I'm sorry, Mormonism After Dark. And a caller called up, and his thing was, "You guys don't seem like you're angry anymore, and I'm still so damn angry. And what do you do? Like, how are you guys past it? How are you guys not angry?" And our response was, "We are still angry." I've heard RFM multiple times note that he was just boiling over something that happened in Mormonism again. And there's so many times that I get so angry about stuff that happens again. But I also communicated to him that, if you are in the club of wanting to burn it down, it will still be here when you take your last breath, and you will have spent so much of your life's energy to tear it down, and it wouldn't have actually happened, and hence you would have just wasted some of your own life force trying to bring something down that wasn't going to be. And I encouraged him to try to separate his story from his feelings and to spend some time just sitting with them. It really is the trick. This is the magic trick in this space to begin to um, dissolve these feelings from affecting you the way they do. And I'll just note that when you are present, just like when I was rubbing your arm and I sat still with the feeling of that, just like anything else in your world, when you sit still with the feelings that you really don't want to be present, but now you stop saying you don't want them to be there, you just let them be there. You don't give them a story, you don't judge them as bad. What I've noticed each time that we've done that practice is that everything inside me softens up. Um, if I can do it right now, if I just sit for a moment with everything I'm feeling, all of a sudden I can just feel my muscles loosening a little bit. My mind recognizes it doesn't need to keep a story attached. The feeling is there. It's not just magically going away, but it no longer is instructing my body to tighten up around it.
Mhm.
And so I'm softening. And the trick into getting all of you who are dealing with shit in your lives, you're in a marriage, you're raising kids, you're going to work every day, you're dealing with a religion that's infiltrated your family relationships and has hurt you over time and space. And the goal to be your best version of human, one of the things you can do is to be present with your feelings, as Teresa's talking about, and begin to soften up around them.
Yes, because so trauma is essentially when we get stuck in a defensive response to something. So something happens to us, it's something really big. We don't get the signal that the scary, dangerous, threatening thing is over with, and so we stay in this perpetual state of defensiveness. And one of the defensive postures is it's okay to yawn, by the way.
Mhm.
Let it out.
Yep.
One of the defensive postures we have is a bracing, right? An internal bracing in our body. And that continues to signal to our nervous system that, things really just aren't safe. And it affects all of our physiological responses. It affects our ability to digest well, to detox our bodies in a normal way because we're always detoxing our bodies. But when we are in a heightened state of activation or fight or flight responses, we don't do that well. It affects our ability to have a regulated immune system. A lot of people have like autoimmune illnesses. So many different things. Our reproduction. So, when we are in a state of fight or flight, which is supposed to be a short lived experience, our, according to our evolution, it's not that important. It's more important to run from a tiger than it is to, create a baby or digest your food in that moment or, fight off a virus in that moment. The tiger is going to get you before the virus is. So basically all those other functions shut down to redirect all of your energy to escaping. And so when we live in this perpetual state of protection, which is what happens when we're in trauma, we don't get the message that it's okay to, like the trauma's over and it's okay to come back into that safety. Um, we get stuck in it. And so mindfulness is what helps to repattern that ingrained response of heightened protection, of hypervigilance, of constantly feeling like we have to be on alert and on guard. And it also allows all of that internalized stress or trauma or whatever the thing we experienced to, like you said, dissolve or disperse or discharge. And it does that by separating the pure sensation or pure energy of it from the narrative. And just one more time, I want to sort of illustrate that, like, we all have things that happen to us. We all go through difficulties and challenges. And, from this sort of analogy of the first and second arrow, the first arrow is the thing that happens to us. We cannot avoid the first arrow. That's life. Life is going to happen. We're going to get shot with arrows sometimes. But the meaning we make of what happens to us is the second arrow. And that's what we do to ourselves. So we often shoot ourselves with a second arrow on top of the thing that's already happened to us. So mindfulness is this practice that allows us to separate that meaning making from the thing that already happened so that we can actually avoid the suffering element because it is actually, the second arrow that causes the most amount of suffering. And so, it's an incredibly powerful, simple, accessible tool that can be used to heal just about anything. And again, like, it's not as simple as just jumping in there and being like, "Oh, okay, mindfulness, let me just sit with stuff." I think for a lot of people, they need, to understand the psychoeducation aspect of it, understand why it works. I can't buy into something unless I know why, so it's helpful to see, like, the scientific, literature. This is an old wisdom tradition that's been around for thousands of years, but it's also backed by studies that show why it works. I think it was John Kabat-Zinn who basically took the Eastern practice. It was originally a Buddhist practice, and he made it secular. Like, he took away all of these spiritual elements and sort of brought it to the secular world. And since then, it's been people have continued to sort of expand on it and sort of narrow it down to different uh, focuses. So one in particular is somatic experiencing, which is something utilized to support people to work through trauma, and then another one is somatic tracking, which is utilized in the concept of pain reprocessing therapy to help people repattern pain responses. And so there's so many different applications of it. There's tons of ways that you can start learning about it. I utilize it in my practice for people who are dealing with trauma and chronic illness. But again, you can utilize it for just about anything. Um, it's super cool.
Yeah. You said it this way. It just strikes me. You point out that this is, if we go back 100,000 years ago, we're in our environment as a tribe, and some threat comes into the encampment, and now we have to deal with that. So all of us are heightened. And as you point out, the way our body deals with a threat is it shuts down all non-essential functions, non-essential to your survival in that moment. And so, as you point out, the digestive system changes. Um, Blood goes to certain places and pulls back from other places. But another note here is that your brain goes into that lower place of your brain, the lizard brain, which is what we would say. And you're not going to make your best decisions. Your body is more prone to getting sick or dealing with illness because it is not tending to itself in all the non-essential function areas. And so the fact that we have some trauma from Mormonism here in 2025, our body and brain is reacting the same way. If we sit with that feeling and we have a story attached, our walls are up, we feel triggered, our body and brain are going to shut off non-essential functions. We're going to be in lizard brain. We're not our healthiest self as far as our physical care. We're not our best self in decision making. And so by being present with it, the feeling may exist. It may continue on. Another thing you do, Teresa, is to help people think about their pain or their discomfort, uncomfortable feelings, and be able to, by making them okay, have them dissipate or go away. But I just want to know, maybe they don't go away. But by being present with the feeling that doesn't go away, by taking away the narrative and the labels, by not judging it, not making it good or bad, letting it just be there, your body and brain can begin to distance themselves away from the feeling. Not that you won't feel it necessarily, but what you will do is your brain will be able to go, it's still safe right now. I'm feeling that
Yeah.
and I'm safe right now. So I can exit back out of lizard brain back into my cerebral frontal cortex and start making good decisions again. Or I can feel safe enough that my digestive system can work and soak up all the nutrients from the foods I'm eating, or whatever other little health issues that we have that might be connected to that. For the first time in a long time, our body can get these larger, consistent moments of feeling okay in the world.
Yeah, because it essentially changes your relationship to the thing that you're sensing to the feelings. It also, I mean, there's so many other really cool, interesting things that mindfulness practices do. It's, I mean, from a scientific perspective, like it increases the gray matter in the brain. Like what else does it do? Like it helps, for emotional regulation. I mean, there's all kinds of like studies and scans that they've done on it. But one of the things that you were saying, like, it's interesting. So, when we're in fight or flight and we're trying to escape from a imminent threat or danger, we basically are in the reactive brain, right? And we need that because that reactive brain moves a lot faster and can make quicker decisions. But we get out of the prefrontal cortex, which is the brain that can do a lot more logical thinking and more complex thinking. And most of life's issues are require that prefrontal cortex to make really good level-headed decisions. And so, when we're in the lizard brain too much, yes, we might make quick reactive decisions, but they're not going to benefit us in our relationships. They're not going to benefit us in really thinking about things that are more long term. And so that's one of the reasons why we want to develop this practice and teach ourselves the ability to come back into a better state of regulation. Because again, it just offers you so much more overall peace in your life to be able to sit in stillness and quiet. is a gift. It's a pleasure, actually. And I had to learn that the hard way because, I didn't come to this practice willingly. I came to it dragging my feet. So, I had no choice at one point. I was immobilized to the point that I couldn't do anything but be in stillness, and I had to figure out how to work with it. And it was one of the best things that's ever happened to me, even though it was extremely uncomfortable and painful. And when you say like sometimes the thing won't change, that's true. Sometimes it won't, but yeah, your relationship to the thing does change, and so your perception of it can be different, which makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and then I think the last thing I'll say, unless something you say leads to something else, I guess, but the last thing I'll say is that w- when you sit with this feeling, all of you can try this. Sometime today, something will bump into you. You'll get annoyed, you'll get set back because you were in the middle of a task and something became a distraction or needed your time. You're going to feel something today that is discomfort, that is uncomfortable. And if you want, you can choose to practice this by just making what you feel okay to feel. That we human beings feel things, and you're feeling a normal thing that human beings feel, that you don't have to judge it as bad. You don't have to assign a story to it, and just be present with it. Now, I will speak from experience. When you go to do that for the first time, the second time, the third time, there's going to be parts of you that are just going to scream, "Get me out of here. I don't want to do this. This is more uncomfortable than what I was doing prior." It's more uncomfortable to be present with it like this. You got to push through that. You have to sit still and allow yourself to get one step beyond that feeling and then notice what happens.
Yeah.
And so I just encourage people to lean into it and not bail on it.
Yeah, and you can start out again for people who have whose capacity is quite low to tolerate this, 10 seconds. Invite yourself to just be with it for 10 seconds and then you can go back to distracting. There's also a technique called pendulation. So let's say there's a uncomfortable sensation in your body and you're kind of just noticing it. The first thing you can ask yourself, and I love open-ended questions, you might start out with, like what if it really is okay to just be with this for 10 seconds? And you drop in and you just feel it and you can, sort of ask yourself, okay, what does it feel like? Well, it feels kind of hard or it feels kind of warm or it feels whatever. And again, reassuring yourself, what if it's okay? What if I can just be with this and I don't have to judge it? And what if I don't have to fix this? Wow, this is really interesting. Curiosity is another huge element of mindfulness. And then after 10 seconds, you can shift your attention somewhere else. Sometimes it's helpful for people to take their attention and move it outward into the environment. So, orienting is a really helpful nervous system regulation tool. And it's basically just looking around your space. Maybe you can look around and see if you can find 5 different colors or 5 different textures, and then you would come back into your body again and do that for, another 10 seconds. And that starts to build up your tolerance. They say when you start meditating, you can meditate for a minute, and then you meditate for 2 minutes and 3 minutes, and you build up your capacity that way. And if you can trust the process that as you keep doing this a little bit at a time, it's going to start getting easier and more comfortable. So you don't overwhelm yourself. Some people will be like, oh, I'm going to start meditation and I'm going to do an hour a day or whatever it is. Like that's not the right way. You want to really work within your own capacity and don't judge what your capacity is. It's okay to be wherever you are. And yeah, sometimes you're going to have to challenge yourself but I don't want, like when I'm talking about mindfulness, I don't ever want people to feel like it's this thing that you sort of like brace against and endure because then it's the opposite of what you're trying to do. You're just noticing, you're bringing okayness, you are giving yourself permission to be where you are. Even if you have thoughts about it, it's okay. Oh, there's the thought about it. That's okay. It's just this constant layer of allowing okay, non-judgment, redirecting yourself to be with through this lens of safety and non-judgment and curiosity. So, um, that's what I'll leave people with at this point. If there's anything else you'd like to offer, but
Just that I hope it's helpful. My hope has always been to help people who are on this journey. And part of this journey is dealing with your trauma long after the trauma happened, dealing with the things that hold you back from growth and progress, from learning. And I think I'll say this word, it's a sacred tool that
mm,
all of us should have in our tool bag. And I want to say thank you, Teresa, for the ways that you interact with me that in a safe way call me to experiment with these tools. And I'm really grateful to have a partner uh, who helps me, holds my hand through some of those things that I'm resistant to, and makes it safe to try those things. So I hope it's useful for people, and I hope this really becomes a tool in your tool bag, folks, that you can utilize to work through and to process some of the stuff you deal with and some of the things that have happened to you.
Awesome. And I want to add one more thing. It can be difficult to do this by yourself. And so, if people are interested in this process, try to find a practitioner who offers it. Somatic experiencing therapy, mindfulness practitioners, people who do pain reprocessing therapy. I'm one of those. And I'm going to link one of the blog posts that I just wrote on mindfulness practice in this podcast episode, so people can refer back to it and see if I can find some other resources that I can put in as well. So,
Awesome.
all
Well,
right.
thank you,
Thanks,
folks.
everyone.
Yep. Thanks for joining the Almost Awakened podcast. We'll see you again next time we sit down to record something. And hope this was beneficial to you. Hope you have a great day. Bye bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Almost Awakened podcast. For more tools, resources, and real talk about conscious living, visit almostawakened.org. That's almostawakened.org, your resource for waking up